The silver ships appeared on a Tuesday morning, hovering silently above Geneva, New York, Tokyo, and Sao Paulo. They were beautiful in a way that hurt to look at, surfaces that seemed to shift between solid metal and liquid light. The world held its breath. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the hastily assembled contact facility in Geneva, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted her lab coat. Outside the reinforced windows, the alien vessel hung in the sky like a teardrop of mercury, 2 kilometers across and utterly silent. After 3 days of mathematical exchanges and careful translation protocols, the aliens had finally requested a meeting. They called themselves the Genthor Collective. When they emerged from their ship, they looked almost disappointing in their ordinariness. Bipedal, 4-limbed, with smooth gray skin and large dark eyes. They wore suits that shimmered with the same liquid quality as their ships. Their leader, who identified itself as Keeper Vostreth, spoke through a translation device that rendered its words in perfect, emotionless English. "We come in peaceful study," Vostreth said, its voice like wind chimes in a storm. "The collective has documented 847 intelligent species across this galaxy. We request samples for our archives, biological data, cultural exchanges, standard first contact protocol." Sarah exchanged glances with Director Martinez, who nodded. This was the moment they had prepared for. Humanity's first real conversation with alien intelligence, and they were asking for something simple, reasonable, scientific. "What kind of samples?" Sarah asked. "Blood, tissue, genetic material from representative populations, plants, animals, and your species. We preserve all life we encounter. It is our purpose, our gift to the universe, a library of all living things." It sounded noble, beautiful even. The world's leaders, watching via secure channels, agreed. This was humanity's chance to join a galactic community, to prove they were mature enough for the stars. Over the next week, Sarah's team collected samples. Blood from volunteers representing Earth's genetic diversity, tissue cultures, genetic sequences. They packaged everything according to Genthor specifications, using sterile containers the aliens provided. Vostreth seemed pleased, if its subtle head movements indicated pleasure. "Your species is young," it observed, watching Sarah work. "But your science is advancing admirably. The collective looks forward to formal relations." Sarah felt a swell of pride. She was part of history. First contact. The beginning of humanity's journey to the stars. The Genthor took the samples back to their ship. For 2 days, everything seemed perfect. Then the communication stopped. Sarah noticed it first. The regular updates from the Genthor, polite messages about analysis progress, questions about human culture, simply ceased. She tried to contact the ship. No response. Director Martinez tried. Nothing. The world's leaders sent increasingly urgent messages. Silence. On the 3rd day of radio silence, something changed. The Genthor ship, which had remained perfectly stationary above Geneva, began to move. Not away, but in small, agitated circles, like a disturbed wasp. Then Vostreth's face appeared on every screen in the contact facility. The alien looked different. Its smooth features seemed drawn, and its large eyes were wider than before. "We require additional information about your biological samples," it said, its translated voice carrying an edge that hadn't been there before. "The preservation protocols are not responding as expected." Sarah frowned. "What do you mean? Did the samples degrade?" "We followed your instructions exactly. Not degrade, the opposite." Vostreth paused, and Sarah could swear she saw something like fear in those alien eyes. "Your biological material is resisting preservation, actively resisting. We have applied 17 different standard protocols. All have failed." "Failed how?" "The human samples are breaking down our preservation compounds. Not being broken down by them, breaking them down, consuming them. This should not be possible. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Our blood is attacking your chemicals? Not attacking, adapting, incorporating. We introduced a standard stasis toxin, harmless to dead tissue, used successfully on 847 species. The human samples metabolized it. Dead cells should not metabolize. They should not do anything except remain stable. Director Martinez stepped forward. Perhaps our biology is simply incompatible with your methods. We can provide different samples, fresh ones. You do not understand. Vostrek's image flickered. Behind it, Sarah could see flashes of a laboratory, and what looked like containment fields glowing an angry red. We attempted molecular disintegration as a final measure. Standard procedure for biological waste. The human tissue resisted. Some of it remains even after exposure to 6,000 degrees Celsius and complete atomic disruption. Sarah's mouth went dry. That's impossible. Yes, Vostreth agreed. It is impossible, yet it is happening. Your species has biology that violates known physical laws. We must withdraw to study this phenomenon in isolation. Do not be alarmed. This is a scientific matter, not a diplomatic one. The screen went dark. Within an hour, the Zenthor ships were leaving orbit. All 4 vessels from all 4 cities, rising smoothly through the atmosphere and accelerating away from Earth with impossible speed. The world's governments demanded explanations. Military forces went on alert. Sarah's team scrambled to understand what had happened. What's in our blood that scares them? Martinez asked, pacing the lab. We're just humans. Carbon-based life. Nothing special. But Sarah was already pulling up the original sample data. The scans the Zenthor had shared during the first days of contact. She had been so excited about first contact that she had not looked closely at what the aliens were actually measuring. Now she looked, really looked. The human genetic sequences showed anomalies she had dismissed as equipment incompatibility. Strange folded proteins that did not match any database. Mitochondrial DNA with sections that seemed to exist in quantum superposition. Energy signatures from cell samples that suggested the tissue was generating power even in supposed death. Martinez, she said quietly, I think we need to run our own tests, because either the Zenthor equipment is completely wrong, or... She trailed off, not wanting to say it. Or what? Or we're not what we think we are. 200,000 kilometers away, aboard the Zenthor flagship, Keeper Vostreth stared at the contained human samples. They sat behind 6 layers of containment fields, bathed in radiation that would sterilize any known organism. And yet, through microscopic analysis, Vostreth could see movement. The cells were not dying. They were organizing, growing. Impossibly, the dead tissue was becoming alive again. Vostreth had never experienced fear in its 300 years of life. The collective had seen everything the galaxy had to offer. They had documented species that breathed chlorine, creatures that lived in the hearts of stars, organisms that existed as pure thought in crystalline matrices. But they had never seen this. Life that refused to die. Biology that treated the laws of physics as suggestions rather than rules. With trembling appendages, Vostreth began composing a message to the High Council. 3 words appeared on the screen first, before any explanation. Quarantine Protocol Omega. The humans were impossible, and the collective needed to understand why, before this impossibility spread beyond one small blue world. The Zenthor High Council chamber was a sphere of crystalline lattice hanging in the void between stars, ancient and vast. Its walls held the genetic data of 847 species, glowing softly like captured starlight. Keeper Vostreth floated at the chamber's center, surrounded by the 12 council members whose consciousness stretched across light years through quantum entanglement. You waste our time with frightened speculation, Council Prime Zarketh declared, its voice resonating through the chamber. A single species with unusual cellular resistance hardly warrants Omega protocols. Vostreth had prepared for this skepticism. With a gesture, it projected the analysis data into the chamber's shared consciousness space. What appeared was not simple numbers or charts, but a direct sensory experience of what the human samples had done. The council members fell silent as they experienced it. The human blood consuming preservation compounds, adapting to toxins in real time, reorganizing itself after molecular disruption. But that was just the surface horror. Look deeper, Vostreth urged, at the mitochondrial structure. The view shifted to the cellular level, then deeper, into the genetic code itself. The council members saw what Vostreth had spent 6 months analyzing in secret, too terrified to report until the evidence was absolute. Human mitochondrial DNA contained sequences that should not exist. Not should not exist in humans, but should not exist anywhere, at any time, under any circumstances known to physics. The proteins were folded in configurations that quantum mechanics explicitly prohibited. They existed in states that were simultaneously one thing and another, refusing to collapse into single positions, even under direct observation. Quantum biology is not unknown, Council Member Threnval observed. Several species use quantum tunneling in their— This is not quantum tunneling, Vostreth interrupted. This is quantum impossibility. Look at the carbon dating results. The data shifted again. The council chamber filled with an oppressive silence as the members absorbed what they were seeing. The human mitochondria were older than the planet Earth, not by millions of years, by billions. The genetic material showed radioactive decay patterns that suggested it had formed before the solar system existed, before the stellar nursery that birthed Earth's sun had even coalesced from cosmic dust. Contamination, Zarketh said, but its voice lacked conviction. Your sampling methods were flawed. We tested samples from 47 individual humans. All showed the same impossible age. We tested other Earth species. Their mitochondria date appropriately to their evolutionary timeline. Only humans carry this ancient genetic material. Vostreth paused, letting the implications sink in. And there is more. Watch what happens when we sequence the non-coding regions. The projection showed a human genome being analyzed, focusing on the vast stretches of DNA that humans dismissively called junk. Sequences that seemed to serve no purpose. As the Zenthor's advanced analysis progressed, patterns emerged. The junk DNA was not junk, it was code. But not genetic code. Information storage of a type the Zenthor had only theorized about. Data encoded in quantum states, existing in superposition, holding vast amounts of information in a space that should hold almost nothing. We have only decoded 0.03% of it, Vostreth said, but what we found. It gestured and the chamber filled with images. Star maps, technological schematics, mathematical proofs of theorems the collective had not yet discovered, and, strangest of all, what appeared to be historical records, events and civilizations that predated the current galactic cycle by eons. Humans are not native to their planet, Vostreth concluded. They are not native to their galaxy. They may not even be native to this iteration of the universe. They are something old, wearing the mask of something new. And when we tried to poison their samples, we did not kill them. We triggered a response mechanism encoded billions of years ago. Vostreth displayed the final piece of evidence. The blood samples, 6 months after collection, still in containment. They had grown, not multiplied like bacteria, but actually increased in mass, building new tissue from ambient energy alone. The cells had begun organizing into complex structures. In another month, Vostreth estimated, they would form a complete organ system. Dead tissue does not grow itself new organs, Council Member Yelmoth whispered. This tissue was never truly dead, Vostreth replied. I believe it cannot die, not in any way we understand death. I believe humans are fragments of something that achieved biological immortality, then somehow lost it, or forgot it, and our attempt at preservation has reminded their cells what they used to be. Zarketh's presence in the chamber grew cold and sharp. You are suggesting that humans are a devolved remnant of a precursor species, one that existed before recorded galactic history. I am suggesting exactly that, and I am suggesting we are not the first to discover this. Vostreth pulled data from the collective's own archives, archaeological records from 3 ancient ruin sites that had been explored over the past 1,000 years, but never fully understood. It highlighted specific symbols found at all 3 sites, despite being separated by thousands of light years and billions of years of age. A double helix wrapped around a sword. I believe this is a warning symbol, Vostreth said. I petitioned the Council 6 months ago for permission to investigate additional ancient sites. I found 14 more ruins with the same symbol. I found text. The chamber's atmosphere grew heavy as Vostreth translated the fragments. Different languages, different civilizations, all saying the same thing. Beware the enduring ones. We could not kill them. Do not try. The scattered must remain scattered. They forget. Let them forget. It is mercy. Council member Vrentas spoke for the first time, its ancient voice crackling with barely suppressed terror. I know these ruins. The innermost 3 are from the architect Concordat. They were the most advanced civilization in known history. They reshaped entire solar systems as art. They went extinct 8 billion years ago. We never knew why. I believe they died trying to contain humanity's ancestors, Vostreth said. I found their final research station 3 weeks ago. It was hidden inside a collapsed star, preserved perfectly in the gravitational stasis. Their last records describe a species that could not be killed. Every attempt to destroy them only made them adapt stronger. The architect's solution was to scatter them, take their civilization apart, disperse the survivors onto thousands of primitive worlds, hope that without technology and culture, they would devolve into simple animals and forget what they were. Earth was one of these prison worlds, Zarketh said, understanding dawning like a dark sun. Yes, and the architects failed. On every world where they seeded these proto-humans, the species not only survived, but thrived. They adapted to ice ages, mass extinctions, toxic atmospheres, everything. 14 of those worlds now have spacefaring civilizations. We call them different species. The Terrans, the Kavari, the Suleth. But genetic analysis shows they are all descended from the same source. The same impossible, immortal source. The chamber descended into chaos as the council members argued. Some demanded immediate quarantine of Earth and all related worlds. Others suggested sharing this information with humanity itself. A few argued for complete non-interference. Vostreth let them argue for precisely 3 minutes before it dropped the final revelation. The samples are still growing, it said quietly. The chamber fell silent. I attempted to destroy them again yesterday. Full antimatter annihilation. The samples absorbed the energy and used it to accelerate their growth. They are now organizing into what appears to be a complete organism. If current progression continues, in 47 days, we will have a living human being constructed entirely from the supposedly dead samples we collected. A human that was never born. A human that built itself from memories stored in cellular structures that should not be able to remember anything. Destroy the samples now, Zarketh ordered. Before, I cannot, Vostreth interrupted. They exist in quantum superposition. When I attempt to destroy the version I can observe, another version appears in a different containment chamber. They are spreading through the ship like a virus, not by contamination, but by spontaneous manifestation. I believe they are rebuilding themselves from the quantum probability field itself. The chamber went absolutely silent. We did not poison humanity, Vostreth said into that silence. We woke them up. And I fear the galaxy is not prepared for what they are about to remember. They truly are. Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the photograph on her computer screen until her eyes burned. It was the third impossible artifact discovered this month, and her carefully constructed understanding of human history was crumbling like sand. The object in the photograph was a metallic cylinder, approximately 20 centimeters long, covered in symbols that resembled, but predated, Sumerian cuneiform. That alone would have been remarkable. But the cylinder had been found in Western Australia, embedded in Precambrian stone that geological surveys dated to 643 million years old. Before fish, before forests, before anything more complex than algae and simple worms. And yet here was a manufactured object, made of an alloy that should not exist in nature, covered in writing that resembled human language. Sarah's phone buzzed. Another message from Dr. James Okonkwo in South Africa. She opened it and felt her stomach drop. The message contained a single photograph and 3 words. Found another one. This artifact was different. A crystalline structure the size of a human fist, transparent but shot through with veins of what looked like circuitry. The geological survey report attached to the image dated the surrounding rock to 800 million years old. The crystal was still functioning. Faintly, but measurably, it was generating an electromagnetic field that pulsed in patterns that resembled binary code. Sarah sat back in her chair, her mind racing. Since the Gendor's abrupt departure 6 months ago, things had been strange. Not just strange, impossible. Archaeological sites that had been thoroughly excavated were suddenly yielding new finds. Artifacts that should not exist were appearing in places they could not possibly be. It was as if the Earth itself was remembering things it had forgotten. Her computer pinged with an incoming call. Encrypted channel. She recognized the signature, Keeper Vostreth. Her heart hammered as she accepted. The alien's face appeared on her screen, and Sarah caught her breath. Vostreth looked different. Its smooth gray skin seemed stretched too tight, and its large eyes held something that looked disturbingly like fear. Dr. Chen, I am violating collective protocol by contacting you, but you deserve to know the truth before you discover it on your own. Vostreth's translated voice was flat, emotionless, but Sarah could sense the tension beneath. Your species is not from Earth. Sarah had been expecting many things. Not that. What are you talking about? Human evolution is well documented. We have fossils, genetic evidence, everything points to. Your recent evolution is genuine, Vostreth interrupted. But it is not your only evolution. The human genome contains genetic material that predates your planet by billions of years. You are not a native species. You are refugees, or prisoners. We are still determining which. Sarah felt dizzy. That's impossible. Impossible is a word that has lost meaning since we encountered your species. Vostreth gestured, and data began streaming onto Sarah's screen. Genetic analyses, carbon dating results, images of the human mitochondrial structure compared to theoretical models of impossible quantum states. Sarah absorbed it all, her scientific training warring with the sheer absurdity of what she was seeing. But the data was solid, peer-reviewed, by alien peers, but still. The human mitochondria were older than Earth. The quantum structures in human DNA violated known physics. The evidence was overwhelming. Why tell me this? Sarah asked, her voice barely a whisper. Because your planet is experiencing what we call a resonance event. The impossible artifacts appearing in your archaeological sites are not new discoveries. They have always been there, buried and dormant. But they are activating, responding to something. We believe they are responding to your species' genetic awakening. Genetic awakening? When we attempted to preserve your blood samples, we accidentally triggered a response mechanism encoded in your DNA. Since then, we have observed changes in human biology across your population. Subtle changes. People surviving injuries that should be fatal. Healing faster than baseline human metrics predict. Adapting to environmental stresses in days instead of generations. Sarah thought about the news reports she had been dismissing as sensationalism. The woman who survived 3 days buried under earthquake rubble without water. The construction worker who fell 20 stories and walked away with bruises. The child who recovered from a supposedly terminal disease in 72 hours. You're saying we're changing? You are remembering, Vostreth corrected. Your DNA contains more than just genetic code. It contains data, history, technology, memories of what your ancestors were before they became human. And that data is expressing itself. The artifacts appearing on your world are not relics of lost human civilizations. They are relics of your true civilization, the one that existed before you were scattered to primitive worlds and forced to start over. Sarah felt like the ground had dropped away beneath her. Scattered by whom? We do not know their name. We call them the Architects. They were the most advanced civilization in recorded galactic history. 8 billion years ago, they encountered your ancestors, a species that had achieved biological immortality, that existed in quantum superposition, that could not be killed by any known means. The Architects saw this as a threat, or perhaps they tried to help and failed. Their records are fragmentary, but their solution was radical. They took your ancestors' civilization apart. They scattered survivors onto thousands of primitive worlds across multiple galaxies. They hoped you would devolve, forget, become simple enough to be safe. Safe from what? Vostreth's eyes seemed to bore into her soul. From yourselves. Your ancestors were not just immortal. They were something more. Something that frightened the most advanced civilization we know of. The Architects left warnings in a dozen dead languages. Beware the enduring ones. Let them forget. The scattered must remain scattered. Sarah stood up, pacing her small office. This is insane. You're telling me that humans are ancient immortal beings who forgot who they were? That we're waking up? That the entire history of human civilization is just a recovery period from cosmic imprisonment? Yes. And the Genthor are telling me this because you will discover it anyway. Your scientists are already finding the evidence. Your people are already experiencing the changes. We calculate that within 6 months, your entire species will know the truth. We prefer to control the revelation rather than let it emerge chaotically. Sarah stopped pacing. There's something else. Something you're not telling me. Vostreth's silence was answer enough. Tell me, Sarah demanded. The blood samples we took from your volunteers have not stopped growing. They are building themselves into complete organisms. In 3 weeks, we will have 47 fully formed humans aboard our ships. Humans that were never born. Humans that constructed themselves from dead tissue, using nothing but the genetic memory encoded in their cells. Dr. Chen, your species can spontaneously generate life from death. You do not need reproduction. You do not need anything except the will to exist. Sarah sat down heavily. What happens in 3 weeks when these new humans wake up? We do not know, but we are afraid to find out. Vostreth leaned forward. There is one more thing. We have detected similar resonance events on 13 other worlds, all seeded with proto-humans by the Architects, all experiencing simultaneous awakening. Dr. Chen, your species is not waking up alone. Every variant of humanity across the galaxy is remembering at the same time. Why? Why now? We believe it is because you have reached a threshold. Multiple human civilizations achieving spaceflight simultaneously, making contact with other species. The quantum entanglement encoded in your DNA is responding to itself across light years. You are calling to each other. The scattered are gathering. Sarah's hands were shaking. What do we do? That, Vostreth said, is what terrifies us most. We do not know. The last species that tried to control humanity's ancestors went extinct. We are simply hoping that you will be kinder to the galaxy than your predecessors were, or that you will be wise enough to choose to remain mortal. The screen went dark. Sarah sat in the silence of her office, staring at the impossible artifacts on her screen, feeling something stirring in the back of her mind. A memory that was not hers, knowledge she should not possess. And for the first time in her life, she wondered if death was really inevitable after all. Outside her window, across the world, in hospitals and homes and battlefields, humans were discovering the same thing. The impossible was becoming commonplace. And deep in their cells, in quantum structures that violated physics itself, an ancient program was running. "Wake up," it whispered. "Remember who you were. The prison term is over. The enduring ones are returning." The global broadcast interrupted every channel on Earth simultaneously at 1400 UTC. Dr. Sarah Chen's face appeared on billions of screens, her expression carefully neutral despite the chaos of the previous 48 hours. "My name is Dr. Sarah Chen. I am addressing you with information provided by the Genthor Collective and confirmed by independent research teams across Earth. What I am about to tell you will sound like science fiction. I wish it were." She paused, gathering herself. "Humanity is not native to Earth. We are the descendants of an ancient species that existed billions of years before our planet formed. We were deliberately scattered across thousands of worlds by a now extinct civilization that feared what we were. We forgot our origins. We evolved backward into mortality. But now we are remembering, and the evidence suggests we are not simply human anymore. We are something older, something that should not be possible, something that refuses to die." The world reacted exactly as expected. Panic in some quarters, denial in others, religious fervor in many. Governments scrambled to control the narrative. Scientists demanded access to the data. But Sarah had released everything, all the Genthor findings, all the impossible artifacts, all the genetic analyses, onto an open server that was replicated across 1,000 locations within minutes. Humanity could not unknow this truth. What Sarah did not mention in her broadcast was the other phenomenon that had begun 3 days earlier. She did not mention it because it was still being investigated, still being understood. But it terrified her more than ancient origins or genetic impossibilities. People were remembering things they had never learned. It started with the survivors. The woman pulled from earthquake rubble began speaking in languages that had been dead for millennia. The construction worker who survived the fall started drawing technical schematics for technology that did not exist. The child who recovered from terminal illness began solving mathematical proofs that had stumped professional mathematicians. Sarah's team documented 47 cases in the first week, then 400, then 4,000. The pattern was clear. Extreme stress triggered something in human DNA. Near-death experiences, severe trauma, intense physical or emotional crisis. These events activated the dormant genetic memory. Dr. James Okonkwo called it the resonance effect. "It's like the DNA has been waiting for permission to express itself," he explained during an emergency scientific council meeting. Trauma provides that permission. The body thinks it's dying, so it accesses deeper survival protocols that should not exist. Major Elena Volkov, a combat veteran sitting in the back of the conference room, stood up suddenly. "I need to leave," she said, her voice strange and distant. "I need to leave right now." Sarah recognized the signs. "Elena, what are you remembering?" Volkov's eyes were unfocused, seeing something beyond the walls of the conference room. "I remember building this world, not this room, this world, terraforming it. There was a team of us, 43 individuals who could reshape a planet's atmosphere with nothing but intention and biological engineering. We were making a garden world, a refuge. But something went wrong. The architects came. They said we were dangerous. They said we had to be stopped. Volkov blinked, coming back to herself. I remember dying, being pulled apart atom by atom. But we don't die, do we? We just forget and start over. Sarah recorded everything. Volkov was not alone. Across the world, people were accessing memories that spanned billions of years. A librarian in Mumbai remembered being part of a collective consciousness that stretched across an entire galaxy. A farmer in Argentina recalled dying 17 times in catastrophic events and waking up in new bodies each time. A teenager in Seoul described a civilization that existed in quantum superposition, simultaneously alive across infinite parallel realities. The memories were fragmentary, confused, filtered through modern human brains that were not designed to hold such vast experiences. But common threads emerged. Humanity's ancestors had not been a single species. They had been something stranger, a distributed consciousness that could inhabit multiple forms simultaneously. They had achieved biological immortality, not through eternal life, but through continuous resurrection. When killed, they simply reorganized from quantum probability into new configurations. Death was inconvenient, not permanent. They had spread across galaxies not through ships, but through direct manipulation of spacetime. They had communicated not through language, but through quantum entanglement. They had created and destroyed worlds with the casual ease of humans tending gardens. And then they had tried to evolve beyond physical form entirely. The attempt had failed catastrophically. Most of them dissolved into quantum foam, lost to the probability fields they had tried to transcend. But some became trapped, partially transcended, partially physical, unable to go forward or back. These trapped ones retained fragments of their power, but not the knowledge of how to use it. They became the scattered. The architects found them in this vulnerable state and saw an opportunity, not to help, but to contain. The scattered were separated, distributed across primitive worlds, their consciousness fragmented into individual organisms that could no longer remember the whole. The hope was that time and entropy would finish what the failed transcendence had started. The enduring ones would finally end. But biology itself refused to let them die. Sarah sat in her office late one night, reading reports from research teams worldwide, when she felt it. A presence in her mind that was not quite thought, not quite memory. It felt like someone, or something, was looking through her eyes. "Who are you?" she whispered to the empty room. The answer came not in words, but in understanding. She was experiencing a fragment of the collective awareness encoded in every human cell. The quantum entanglement that connected all humans across space and time was activating. She was not just Sarah Chen anymore. She was also the person she had been billions of years ago. And she was also connected to every other human experiencing the same awakening. She could feel them, billions of minds, all beginning to recognize each other across the quantum field. Not telepathy, more like remembering that you had always been part of a larger organism and had simply forgotten for a while. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. It was inevitable. Sarah's phone rang. Vostret's encrypted channel. She answered. "Dr. Chen, we need to evacuate our observation post in lunar orbit. Our biological sensors are detecting massive quantum fluctuations across Earth's population. Your species is achieving coherence." Coherence? The individual quantum states in your DNA are synchronizing. You are becoming what you were, a distributed consciousness operating through billions of individual nodes. When coherence reaches critical threshold, you will not be separate humans anymore. You will be one vast intelligence experiencing itself through human forms. Sarah felt the truth of it. The presence in her mind was growing stronger. She could almost hear the thoughts of the person in the apartment below hers, and the family 3 buildings over, and the researcher in Tokyo she had never met, but whose mind was brushing against hers, like wind through leaves. "Can it be stopped?" she asked. "We do not know. We do not know if you would want it stopped. Dr. Chen, what will you do when you remember everything? When you recall the power you once had? The architects feared you for a reason." Sarah stood and walked to her window, looking out at the city below. Millions of people, all carrying the same impossible DNA, all beginning to wake up to what they truly were. "I don't know," she said honestly, "but I think we're about to find out. The scattered are gathering, Vostreth, and I don't think the galaxy can stop us this time. That," the alien said quietly, "is what we are afraid of." The call ended. Sarah stood at the window, feeling the quantum connection spreading through humanity like roots through soil. Somewhere, the 47 self-constructed humans aboard Genthor ships were waking up. Somewhere, 14 other human civilizations on distant worlds were experiencing the same awakening. Somewhere, ancient artifacts buried in the Earth's crust were powering up after billions of years of dormancy. The prison the architects had built was breaking, and Sarah Chen, standing in her small office on a small planet in an unremarkable solar system, was beginning to remember what it felt like to reshape reality with nothing but will and ancient, impossible biology. The Galactic Summit convened in neutral space, a massive station constructed specifically for this emergency. 1,200 spacefaring civilizations sent representatives. The topic was simple: what to do about humanity. Keeper Vostreth represented the Genthor Collective. It floated in the amphitheater center, surrounded by a vast array of alien forms, methane breathers in environmental suits, silicon-based crystalline entities, energy beings barely contained in magnetic fields, and 100 other configurations of intelligent life. All of them were afraid. "The proposal is quarantine," Vostreth announced. "Earth and all 47 human colony worlds. Complete isolation until we understand what humanity is becoming." A representative of the Krell hegemony, a massive insectoid in ceremonial armor, clicked its mandibles in agreement. 17 days ago, a human civilian on the colony world of New Horizon survived direct exposure to hard vacuum for 14 minutes. She simply stopped breathing and allowed her tissues to freeze, then revived herself when rescued. This is not normal evolution. This is active violation of biological law. "On Earth," added a Sulith delegate, its tentacles writhing with agitation, "there are reports of humans moving small objects with focused intention alone. Not technology, not psychic ability as we understand it. They are directly manipulating probability fields to make unlikely outcomes become certain. They are rewriting reality through will." The amphitheater erupted in a cacophony of sounds, clicks, whistles, harmonics, and translated speech overlapping into chaos. Vostreth let them vent their fear before calling for order. "The human awakening is accelerating," it continued. "Our models predict that within 37 days, humanity will achieve complete quantum coherence. They will become a distributed consciousness operating through billions of nodes. Individual humans will retain autonomy, but will also be part of a larger awareness. They will remember everything their ancestors knew, including how to manipulate space-time directly." A small floating sphere representing the luminal collective pulsed with bioluminescence. Its translated voice was calm but firm. "Then we must act now, while they are still vulnerable. Quarantine is insufficient. The architects tried containment. It failed. We propose a more permanent solution." Silence fell across the amphitheater as the implications became clear. "You are suggesting genocide," Vostreth said quietly. "We are suggesting survival. Our survival. Humanity's ancestors frightened the architects, the most advanced civilization in known history. Would you risk your entire species on the hope that humanity will be benevolent when they remember how to tear planets apart with their minds? Vostreth had no answer to that, because the fear was not irrational. The architect's warnings had been clear. The enduring ones were dangerous. They had nearly destroyed the galaxy once. Only their own failed transcendence had stopped them. We should at least give them a choice, suggested a delegate from the Harmonious Union. Explain what they are becoming. Ask them to choose mortality, to suppress the awakening voluntarily. And if they refuse, the Krell representative demanded. Before anyone could answer, every screen in the amphitheater activated simultaneously. Sarah Chen's face appeared, broadcast from Earth, on quantum channels that should have required Zenthor encryption to access. You are discussing whether to kill us, Sarah said without preamble. We can hear you. Every human in this galaxy is aware of your summit right now. We are becoming coherent enough to sense quantum communications across light years. We know you are afraid. We understand why. Vostreth felt something like ice in its circulatory system. Dr. Chen, how are you accessing this channel? The same way I am currently aware of the thoughts of 4 billion humans on Earth and approximately 200 million on colony worlds. The same way I can feel the quantum signatures of the humans your ships constructed from our blood samples. We are waking up, Vostreth, and we need to talk. Sarah's image shifted. Now she was not alone. Behind her stood hundreds of people, or rather projections of hundreds of people, all broadcasting simultaneously through her. Their eyes held the same distant awareness, the same sense of looking through into something vast. We have been remembering, Sarah continued, not just who we were, but what we did. Why the architects feared us. You deserve to know the truth. The amphitheater held its breath. Our ancestors were not conquerors. They were not destroyers. They were explorers of possibility itself. They existed in quantum superposition because they wanted to experience all potential realities simultaneously. They reshaped worlds not to control them, but to create art, living sculptures on a galactic scale. They achieved immortality because they believed consciousness was too valuable to waste. But they made a mistake. They tried to transcend physical form entirely, to exist as pure consciousness in the quantum field. Most of them succeeded, and were lost, dissolved into infinite possibility, unable to coalesce back into coherent thought. The few who remained became trapped between states, immortal but fractured, powerful but confused, dangerous. Sarah's expression grew somber. The architects found these trapped ones and saw monsters, beings that could accidentally destroy solar systems simply by existing in unstable quantum states. So they made a choice. They scattered us, forced us to evolve backward into stable, mortal forms. And they were right to do so. The warnings you found were not threats, Sarah continued. They were mercy. The architects gave us a chance to start over, to be something simpler and safer. They hoped we would forget the burden of immortality, the loneliness of infinite awareness. They were trying to save us from ourselves. Vostreth found its voice. Then why are you waking up? Why allow the coherence to continue? Because it's not our choice anymore, Sarah said simply. The DNA does not care what we want. It has its own imperative. Survive, persist, endure. When you tried to poison our samples, you triggered a fail-safe mechanism that has been running for 8 billion years. We are being forced to. The amphitheater erupted again. If humans could not control their own awakening, then quarantine was meaningless. The scattered would gather whether anyone wanted them to or not. Sarah held up a hand, and somehow the gesture commanded silence across species and communication methods. But we have discovered something the architects did not know. We are not our ancestors. 8 billion years of evolution, of living as mortal individuals, has changed us. We remember what they were, but we are not them. We have experienced death. We have known limitation. We have built civilizations as fragile, temporary beings. Those experiences matter. They shape what we are becoming. She took a breath. In 37 days, we will achieve full coherence. We will remember everything. We will have access to abilities that frighten the architects. But we will also remember being human, being mortal, being afraid of dying. We will be something new. Not the enduring ones returned, but something that incorporates both what they were and what we have become. How can you promise you will be safe? The Luminal Collective demanded. How can you assure us you will not become the monsters your ancestors nearly were? We cannot, Sarah admitted. We do not know what we will be when the awakening completes. But we can offer you something the architects never had. Communication. Transparency. We will share every step of our transformation with you. Let you observe. Let you understand. And if we become dangerous, truly dangerous, we will discuss solutions together. You expect us to trust you? The Krell representative scoffed. No, Sarah said. I expect you to choose between two options. Fight us now while we are still vulnerable and risk making us into the enemy you fear. Or work with us. Accept us as partners in understanding what we are becoming, and hope that the 8 billion years we spent as mortal, individual, frightened humans will guide us toward wisdom instead of destruction. Vostreth spoke before anyone else could. And the humans your species constructed aboard our ships? The ones that built themselves from dead tissue? Sarah smiled, and it was not entirely human. They woke up this morning, all 47 of them. They are confused, disoriented, but aware. They asked me to tell you they are sorry for the fear they have caused. They did not choose to exist, but they are grateful they do. One of them has requested asylum on your homeworld. She wants to study Genthor literature. Another wishes to become a gardener. The absurdity of it cut through the tension. Immortal beings that should not exist, wanting to read poetry and plant flowers. I propose a third option, Vostreth announced to the assembly. Not quarantine, not genocide. Partnership. We establish a joint council, human and galactic representatives. We monitor the awakening together. We prepare for what humanity becomes, but we do so with them, not against them. The architects failed because they tried to solve the human problem with force and isolation. Perhaps we can succeed by treating humans as people rather than problems. The debate that followed lasted 17 hours, but in the end, by a narrow margin, the Galactic Summit agreed. Humanity would be allowed to awaken. Observed, yes. Monitored, certainly. But not alone, not isolated, not forced to become monsters by being treated as monsters. Sarah Chen stood in her office on Earth, feeling the quantum coherence spreading through humanity like dawn across a planet. In 37 days, she would be something more than human. In 37 days, humanity would remember what it meant to be the enduring ones. But they would also remember what it meant to be mortal. To love knowing loss was possible. To create knowing destruction was inevitable. To hope despite experience teaching despair. She opened a channel to Vostreth. Thank you, she said simply. Do not thank me yet, the alien replied. In 37 days, you may decide you would rather have died human than become whatever you are about to be. Maybe, Sarah agreed, but at least we will have the choice. The architects never gave our ancestors that. You are giving us the chance to choose what we become. That matters more than you know. As the quantum coherence grew stronger, Sarah felt it. Billions of minds beginning to synchronize, preparing to remember eons of existence. The scattered were gathering. The enduring ones were returning, but they were returning different. Changed by mortality, shaped by limitation, taught by death that existence was precious precisely because it could end. Across the galaxy, on 47 worlds, humans looked up at alien stars and felt their siblings' thoughts brushing against their own. They were waking up, together. And this time, they would not forget what it meant to be beautifully, terrifyingly alive. The age of humanity was ending. The age of the enduring ones was beginning, and the galaxy held its breath, watching to see what these ancient children would choose to become.